This is Find Your Magic, where we interview people who have found their gifts and the courage to live into them. I'm Jaime Gennaro, consultant and business coach. And this week, we interview Stephanie Jacques.
Hi, and I'm Tracy Feldstein, body and wellness engineer and owner of Hello Mellow Natural Skincare. This week, we interview Stephanie Jacques, who is a singer, songwriter, and a podcaster. Listen in to hear her story of her magic and her challenges.
And if you like what you hear, make sure to like and subscribe, share it with your friends. This is all about helping you find your magic and to be inspired. And we'll be hosting an in-person event where we're going to workshop this idea of finding your magic. It's going to be in January 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2022 in Ojai, California. So you can find more information in the links below.
See you soon.
Enjoy.
Who are you? Introduce yourself.
My name is Stephanie Jacques, and I'm a singer-songwriter who is from California, lived in Nashville, back in California at the moment. And I write country and R&B and pop music and sing country and pop music. And currently I'm also a podcast host of Jacques Talk, which is a podcast that elevates the conversation, the collective conversation of having hard conversations and kind of making them easily digestible for people to hear by having conversations with friends and fellow activists.
Yeah, so what are the topics? What are these digestible topics that you're focusing on?
Well, it started obviously it started in the middle of the pandemic. I moved to California to help my sister out, and I started having Instagram lives with my friends in Nashville. We had started a organization called NAC, which is the Nashville Action Committee, which is a committee that was helping with like the election, helping get information out to people in small forms. So I started with conversations that revolved around like the election, revolved around race, revolved around how to make people see what white privilege was without being argumentative, like just having a conversation that I have already been having with friends. I just hit record. Mm-hmm. So people could peer into the window of like what we are talking about and know like, oh, these are conversations that can be had and can be had in a respectable manner, not an argumentative manner. And I think that was important. So it started with those small conversations, and it kind of built into race and country music, because country music, it has a long history of being racially divided and not letting minorities in, even though minorities created it. So like starting that, and now it's growing into like wellness and everything that will help us have support in the midst of what this last year and a half has been. So that includes race, and it includes politics, but it also includes like breathing right. And support and friendship and what all of that means. And for me, a lot of it does have the root of race and the root of justice and activism. But I think that's just because that's my core belief system. So everything comes from that place of like, yeah, let's have like a better minimum wage. So let's discuss it. Like, how are you surviving? How am I surviving? Like, let's discuss it. And everything just comes into a place of conversation, which I think is the only way for people to hear. People don't hear when people are yelling. People hear when people are talking.
Yeah.
You know?
So Steph, when did you feel like this was, and I guess it goes for both the podcast and the music, like this is my magic, and by magic, it's like why I was put on the planet. It's the thing I'm born to do. It makes me, it's special to me, right? And when did you realize that, and what what gave you the oomph to jump, what to do it, to follow your dreams?
Good question. I'll kind of break it into two. For music, that was just inherently, it's who I am. I am music. Since I was in preschool, like the teachers asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, Julie Andrews and a mom. Like I always just wanted to sing and perform and created my first like group in elementary school with my girlfriends, and like we sang in the playgrounds. Like I just always wanted to put music at the forefront of my life. Whenever I was sad, I would sing. It was just who I would say, it's just innately who I am. And it didn't take much for me to like risk it, because I think there's a level of, when you're young, being green and naive is an asset, because you just kind of jump, not knowing what the risks are on the other end of that jump. And I just kept jumping. I jumped to LA. I jumped to go to college in DC, and then I went back to LA, and I broke into the Jay Leno show to get my first job as with Joss Stone. And I didn't think like, that's illegal. Like I was like, I'm gonna go backstage. Like you're not supposed to do that. But also I look and I go, the universe and everything didn't stop me. I didn't get in trouble. They allowed me to do all of these things that got me work and put me in the position to sing. And I just said yes. I said yes to everything, because I didn't know that I couldn't do it. And so that kind of brought me to Nashville, and brought me to writing, and brought me to just becoming my whole self musically, and allowing myself to like fully be my authentic self in creating and in writing. And then boom, a pandemic hit. And I kind of, now we're older, it's like, uh-oh, like I know what the risks are of all of the things. So I kind of innately hid more, but then my sister offered me to come out here to California, and I helped with my niece. And in that, I was able to visually see what was happening in the world, because I did not have any noise around me. And I think a lot of people who started working from home realized, oh, there's stuff happening in this world that we're not paying attention to. And I felt innately called to talk about it. So I jumped on an Instagram live by myself and started saying how I felt about race, how I've been pulled over, how I am treated. And I think a lot of people didn't know that I had been treated like this, because I am a light-skinned Black woman. I am attractive. I'm a smiley person. But when people realize that video of like, I think it was like 15 minutes, that passed around Nashville, it like boomed. Like I was like, whoa, people want to hear this. And people were commenting. I was like, you know what? I'm going to just start having some conversations about that. And I think that's when I knew, oh, you have the digestible voice that people need to hear. Like I have that. Like, I think a lot of people were saying what I was saying, but people weren't listening, because I have that magic of, I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in white America. My mom is white. I grew up in those schools, but I'm also a Black woman and went to a Black college and have a lot of Black friends. And my experience in life, even living in a white world, is being a Black woman in a white world, no matter how light-skinned I am. But I could talk to both, because I literally live in both worlds. My worlds don't connect. Like I have my white side of my family and I have my Black side of my family. Like they don't blend. They don't hang out with each other. Like it's two different worlds. And I think that is what America is. Two different worlds that needed to find a way to, how do we mingle these? How do we combine these? And I am in not an arrogant way, but like I figured out how to combine them in my own life. And if I can share that and bring it to a bigger picture, that was the original juice of what Jacques Talk was created to be. And then it just grew.
So I'm curious, that first Instagram live. So you clearly, you said this earlier too, that you have these ideas and these sort of sentiments that you've carried around with you for a while, right? And maybe you've talked about it with friends and in intimate settings before, but in that moment when you decided to kind of make it public, the crest of that moment is always really interesting to me, because there's that moment where it's like, well, I'm pretty sure that I can deliver this information in a way that will resonate with people. But what if it doesn't? Because it's risky, this conversation too. And there's so much that we all want to talk about, but we reserve some of it because we know that there can be a certain reaction to it, right? So what was that moment where you're like, this needs to be public, I need to try it, I need to put it out there? Do you remember that?
I do. I think, well, it kind of happened in twofold. Like when I did the original Instagram live, I did not expect to be so open. I'm crying in it. Like I did not expect the emotions that I was feeling and what I was sharing to come out, because I had held them in for so long. I would talk to close friends about things, but I really knew the risks. I was like, no, if people know how liberal I am, if people know that this is what I believe, this is going to make people uncomfortable. So let's just not make the waves. But in that moment, I didn't think of any of that. And I just told my truth 100%. I was like upset. I was angry. But also in that moment, I did not have the following of, I would say, like the Nashville elite. Like I didn't have this huge following of people that I thought would even ever see this video. Like I was like, what am I risking? I just write little songs and whatever. After I did it, that's when I realized, oh, you've made a statement. You've drawn a line. You've drawn a line of what you believe and what you don't believe, where you stand. And it has cost me some things, but what it has cost me can't even compare to what it has opened up to me and what has grown in my life and the access I've had and what has been handed to me for my career. My career has grown exponentially since speaking my truth, since becoming 100% who I am. And yes, I have lost some stuff in Nashville and with some of the Nashville people, but those are also people I wouldn't want to do work with. I learned, I'm like, no, I've chosen this path and they've chosen this path, and that's okay. It's okay. And if they want to conversate, we can have a conversation about it. But I work with people that are here and over here.
Right.
But I didn't know I was drawing the line in the sand until the line in the sand was actually drawn. Until I realized, because I don't even know if I knew how passionate I was about those feelings until I did that video and I saw tears, and I watch it back now and I go, whoa, yeah, you were upset. You were really, really upset. And I don't want to ever be that upset again. I don't want to ever have to hold in so much that I'm that upset again. And I have to release it. I want to be able people to know where I am and be me.
Yeah. So good. So that would be a great intro to my question is then, where are those, or have there been any of those moments where, at first you're like, okay, nothing to lose, right? I'm going for it. And then all of a sudden you realize, people are watching. There may be something to lose. Or when those moments came up, were you just straight up like, oh well, here I go? Or were those old tapes coming up, or were there things that got in the way, or did you have any fears, things that kind of you had to navigate through to keep showing up, or that are having you show up in different ways? Or
Yeah, I would say when I first realized it, everybody was locked down. So we were all doing Zoom writing sessions and everything. So I started getting writes and conversations with people that I didn't know And I started talking to Mickey Guyton, who is a country songwriter who actually is one of my friends. And she released a song called Black Like Me. And I was watching what was happening to her. And I was like, oh, she's getting hate emails. She's getting hate DMs. Like, people are being horrific to her. I had her on the podcast and we talked about like what the cost was. And she's like, cost is my sanity. And the cost is I can't play the same game. I'm not white. And that's when I realized no matter what I lose, I wasn't going to gain it anyway. I wasn't going to gain it because I'm not white and I'm not blonde hair, blue eyed. I can't play the same Nashville game as a Faith Hill or as any of my friends that are white coming up or writing, because it's just not the same town. I'm like, if Mickey can't get it, and Mickey is one of the best singers I've ever heard, one of the best writers I've ever heard, and they wouldn't let her in the door playing it that way, playing the game the way that you historically play it, it doesn't matter what I say because they're not letting me in anyway. They might make it about the fact that I'm saying these things and this is my podcast, but Mickey was silent for 10 years and they wouldn't let her in. And then when she released a song, they're like, oh, this is why you're not in. Even though it didn't matter because that song that she released went past genre. And I was like, okay, I need to not think so small. And it was hard in the sense of I've had conversations where I've had to let co-writers go. I've had a lot of mourning in it, like, because I've seen people for who they are. And it's okay. It's okay if you believe this. That is not the point. The point is I want to surround myself with people that help me grow and want to grow. And I realized, oh, I can't even create with this person because they don't want to grow. They don't want to learn. They don't want to be. And so I would say more than the risks, it's been the mourning of like, oh, the way I have to do this, the way I have to do this for me is different. And it's going to come with some loss of people. It's going to come with some loss of opportunity. But all those opportunities would have actually come with a greater loss of me having to hold back who I am. Like, you can't be 100% authentic and have these opportunities. So do you want this opportunity, or do you want to be able to like live and not live two lives?
Yeah.
Because that would require me having to live two lives. Like a friend of mine said, there's an artist, Morgan Wallen, who said some racist things, and he's getting back out there and like, well, you're never going to be able to work with him. And I'm like, the person he is right now, I don't want to work with. And that's okay. And he probably doesn't want to work with me. Fine. Maybe we'll work together one day. But you know what?
He'll have a conversation with you.
Maybe we'll have a conversation. I'm like, the door's open. There's not like, oh, you're horrible. It's more like, no, I working with him would go against my path at this moment. And I'm very aware of what I want my world to revolve around and what I want in my world and what I want to be. And I want to be me. I don't want to have to filter myself. I don't want to have to play the game. And it will always come at a cost, and it will always be a little bit more isolation when you're being your true authentic self, because in the music industry, because
I think in any industry.
Yeah, you're not being fake.
As you're speaking, I'm hearing all of our clients. I'm hearing anyone that puts themselves out there and is willing to believe in themselves and finds what's special to them and their authenticity, and having to stand in that, right? And to see from that and make your choices from that, whether it's race or, it will come with some loss, right? Because you can see clearer. Once you get really clear on what your truth is, then you're like, oh, that doesn't actually align with that, right? And so in order to stay there and to fill your world with more support around what's your truth, you have to make choices, right? And some people fit and some don't, right? And that's scary too.
It's the fact that like anger and like competition shuts you down, but conversation opens you up. And when you can come from a place of of true authenticity. Like I am not, I really am not judging. I say in my podcast, I try to say in the beginning, like, as long as you come with love, we can talk about anything. If the root you're coming in with is love, we can talk about anything. We all have our own experiences. So you might love this and be Trump and all these things that I am not. But we can have a conversation with it as long as we're coming from love, because love holds respect, love holds kindness, love doesn't have judgment. So if you're coming from that, we can have a conversation. When things start getting closed off is when you turn off the love and you turn off that, and people start getting angry, and then you shut down and then you get defensive. But then it's no longer a conversation. Then we're both closed, our ears are closed, and nobody's listening to what you're saying. We're just trying to get our points across. That's not a conversation. That's an argument. And I'm like, Jacques Talk is a conversation. So there are some people that could not be on it because there would be arguments. I know that I couldn't come from a place of love. There are people I can't have a Jacques Talk with yet because I'm not at the place where I could do it and hold space for them. That's okay. One day I will. That's my work. That's what I have to do. But because I have to come from love and they have to come from love. That's the agreement. The agreement is we're having a conversation. So some conversations just aren't ready to be had because the passion is too heightened. But I'm hopeful for them. I'm hopeful for them as I evolve and as other people evolve. The conversations keep coming,
Yeah.
Slowly
I
built.
think it's really cool. I think that that right, the anger and the fear and all those things come from like our own shame stories of our own stuff that we've been hiding, and so the more you can have conversations, the more you can stay curious, the more you can stay neutral and come from that place which you're calling love, right? Is like the openness to let those shameful things that we hide about ourselves, even if it's like Jamie was saying, like there's things I want to say, but I just am afraid of what people are going to say, right? And we all have that. And so there's that fine line of like, finding the courage or allowing the self-love to keep growing and keep taking care of ourselves in a way that we are like, all right, well, just like you're saying, it just is what I am. This is where I am. And so this is what I've got, and so what a cool way to help bring out that energy of that shame stuff. Cause I always say it's like shame is like cement, right? Inside your body, and it like stops the feelings from moving and the energy from flowing. And so the more we can break that down and make it kind of normal to talk about, because we all have it, and the more we can kind of just talk and stay curious and laugh about it, the more healing we do, the more growing we do.
Exactly.
So I think it's cool stuff. Jamie, you want to ask her our favorite last question?
Yeah. So it always, it takes confidence, and clearly you have it in abundance to come forward with these things that you want to talk about. You want to make it open. But we start to talk about those things. There are different levels, right? So where is the fear now? It's not in talking about racism. It's not in having these conversations, but where are you still holding back?
I think, and I've honestly been thinking about this a lot, which is interesting that this is your question. Like the fear now is that I'll get too comfortable. I'll get too comfortable with, and I won't keep searching for the things that I see out in the world. Like, I don't want to be so comfortable. Like, let's talk about race. Like, there are so many problems in this world. There are so many things that need to be discussed. And my fear is becoming like kind of blind to them and sitting in this moment where it's like, oh, we can talk about race. I know this is good. Like, I know the results of it. I know how we can get across, and not searching for all the other things that can be discussed. Like, I get really scared that I'll miss out on the other things because of, I know how race is going to handle. I am a biracial woman, but there's other conversations that I know are out there that I don't have that same, I'm not that person, but the conversations still need to be had. And that makes me not only scared, but nervous that I will shy away from it and not lean into it. So I keep having to and keep choosing to do work on myself so that I lean into it, because we all have our fears, we all have the things that we get comfortable. And I just don't ever want to be comfortable. I want to keep pushing, and I'm scared I'll become comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, so great. It's so inspiring. I'm so happy to have you in this forum because you get to talk about sort of the experience of what you're doing. And so, not only are you having the conversations that are inspiring people to have those conversations, but seeing your approach to it is also so inspiring so that other people will feel like they can be more authentic and find that spark inside of them, which is the goal here, is just to give people sort of more feedback and stories of people who are doing it so that they feel like, oh, wait, if that person can come out and do that and be authentic and, be themselves fully and wholly, oh, then, okay, maybe that gives me permission to do it. So I'm so glad you were here. It's so inspiring. Like the wheels are turning. I have so many other things I'll want to ask you at some point.
Oh, I'm so glad. I feel so thankful that you guys had me and I was able to share the background to what is in the foreground. Like when you listen to the podcast and you listen to the conversations and listen to the music, like all the new music is based on it too. So it's just all just putting in people's faces. But I feel thankful that you guys want to have the conversation, that makes me feel happy. That fills my cup.
Cool.
Yeah, that was fun and interesting. Different from the others, right? So fascinating. It's so fun to hear people find their magic and take that leap.
Yes. And I think it's so fun to see them on the other side of it, because it's almost like once you get over that hurdle, you sort of forget that it was a hurdle, right? She's so confident and still continues to be so brave in the way that she shows up. And, but that first step, like coming out and being that vulnerable initially, and it just seems like she had it wasn't like she watched it again or like tried to show it to someone or was like, should I post this? She just was like, no, here it is. But now she's in this reflective space where it's like, that didn't even seem scary. It was just how she is. Like, that's her approach. She just puts these things out there and takes these risks. It's just part of who she is.
She felt really clear, right? Like, this is what I'm here to do. And that I think was a neat part of the journey also, just to be like, okay, because first it was like, I'm just doing it. I got to do it. Right. Like I have to, this is my magic, right? I feel driven to do it. And then you go like, what am I doing? Right? Like, how do I keep doing it? And so that's when it becomes the interesting part of like, okay, let's step back and let's look at the magic and let's look at what you want to create, and support that so you can feel super confident, right? Because when those old voices and gremlins and all the things that come up when you're living in your dream and you're like, this is awesome, I'm in. And then you're like, uh-oh.
Right.
What am I doing here? And what do I want from this? And am I going to be successful? What does it look like doing? Why are people listening to me? Right. I had all the things also. So it's so cool to see her way past that, which I think is really neat.
Yeah. And I think something we talk about a lot too is the idea of putting it out there first and not worrying about the outcome. She didn't do it because she was trying to get more work, right? She did it because it felt like something she needed to do. And then she thought about the next steps afterwards. And I just so much, like, I think that's the thing that most of my clients struggle with, is that first step and like putting that first thing out there, which is the scariest moment, because they think of all the stories, the future stories, right? We have all our past stories, but they're like, but what could this thing be? Is it something, you try to create it, and it's like, you have no idea. But if it feels like something you need to do, just put it out there and whatever happens, happens. But I think it's that first moment that I end up working with people on, because they just are afraid to just like vomit and then clean it up.
Right.
That's like a terrible metaphor.
It is. Maybe throw spaghetti.
Yeah. But just like,
but I get it.
Like dropping it like all the jelly beans, it's like, it's so beautiful and fun to see like jelly beans rolling on the floor. And then you can think about like, how do you sort them? Or what are you going to do with them?
Let them organically sort.
Yeah.
Right. As we dare ourselves to do a lot too, is like, oh my God, that's a great idea. Let's try it. And like, even this podcast is like, oh my God, that feels so fun. Let's keep going. Okay, let's ask a couple bit. Okay, people want to do it. Okay, cool. Let's just keep doing it. Right. Like, and then whatever it becomes, it will become. And yes, we look at it and like decide which way to follow as the stream starts splitting and doing, but not stopping yourself to say, okay, well, I need to make a podcast and I need to make a this, and this is going to be that. And therefore, I'm going to make $1 billion, and that's where I feel like our clients get like stuck, where you're like, okay, that's the wrong method. That's not authentic. That's not following your magic. That's like following a recipe that's someone else's recipe and you're not making their meal, And so I totally agree with that unbelievable moment where it's like, I just have to do this. It's just what I have to do. I'm doing it, and it's like, cool. That's so cool to see someone just go for it and be like, huh, didn't even know.
Yeah.